Alright, so I thought I'd make this next video about Sheldon Cooper. He's a character from a show called The Big Bang Theory, which is a show that's been around for several years now. The show is focused around mainly three characters, two physicists who work at Caltech and one sort of aspiring actress slash initially she was a waitress, but right now she's working in sales, I believe. But that's really kind of irrelevant to this video. One of the main characters is a theoretical physicist who he lives with an experimental physicist. And the theoretical physicist displays a lot of characteristics of Asperger's, and I thought I'd mention that. I thought I'd talk about that a little bit. So anyway, to get a little bit specific, some of the aspects of Asperger's that he displays are difficulty with sarcasm. The first episode, he's asked by one of the main characters, Penny, what he's been up to during the day, like, you know, how have you been doing? What's up? What have you been up to? And he said, well, today we tried masturbating for money, but, you know, that didn't work out. So that's just a little piece of dialogue where a question posed by another character, she wasn't necessarily asking for very much of a literal response to, you know, what events had occurred during his particular day. She just wanted to have sort of a more, you know, general, you know, has your day been good or bad type thing. Instead, he gives a very, very specific answer. And apparently with Asperger's, that's kind of common, sort of literal answers to sort of questions that are kind of ambiguous tend to occur, basically. Also with autism, with Asperger's, repetitive behaviors sort of related to kind of anxiety tend to occur commonly. Not in all cases of Asperger's necessarily, but with Sheldon Cooper specifically, he cannot just knock on someone's door, you know, to, you know, have them let him in or whatever. He has to knock 3 times, then pause, 3 times again, pause, 3 more times. It's kind of like an OCD tick that he has to do, otherwise he looks very physically uncomfortable. Now, OCD and anxiety is not mandatory, comorbid illness connected to Asperger's, but it's a common one. He obsesses. He has very profound obsessions. One of his profound obsessions is with physics. Apparently, from what the character discusses, it's been a obsession. I don't want to say obsession, because when I say obsession, it sounds like kind of like a pathological like problem. But one of his main profound interests through most of his life, as he just has described throughout the show, is physics and science in general. So he works as a physicist, and he's fairly successful, largely because of the amount of focus he's been able to put into the subject from a very young age, and the amount of passion that he has towards it because of how much he's focused on it, and how, I think largely just because of how good he is at it, quite frankly. Now, something else that Sheldon Cooper has is he has something that's fairly rare called an eidetic memory. He can read a series of numbers or words or anything, and upon having read it once, can recall the information on demand. Now, that's kind of a savant trait, and autistic savantism, or savantism in general, has been found to be linked genetically to people who savantism and autism are two things that they have found genetic connections to both. Nobody really has quite understood why, I don't think, and if they had, I wouldn't be able to explain it because I don't know about genetics, but apparently that's the case. Let's see here. What else? Well, it's kind of irrelevant at this point. Right now, the point I'm making this video isn't necessarily to try to diagnose this character, because, I mean, I don't even know if this is what he really has, if he even has Asperger's. The word Asperger's in connection to the character has not been used once from what I've heard, and I'm basically up to date with all of the episodes. Asperger's or autism have not been connected to that character Sheldon in any way, really, that I've seen. Maybe I'm wrong, and if I am wrong, please comment. But that is one thing that I like very much about the show, because I think, okay, basically, I'm kind of undecided about this, about whether or not it perpetuates stigma or whether or not it combats it. I'm going to get into that in the next video, though. This one I'm just kind of trying to very surface level describe Sheldon Cooper's character. He has very strict routine. During the day, he needs to get up at a certain. He basically organizes everything that he has to do during the day, up into and including bowel movements. Everything has a schedule, and everything runs as, as it should. And when it doesn't, if there's a disruption in his schedule, all hell breaks loose, and he gets nuts. And I don't know if this is the case for all people with Asperger's, obviously, but in his character, that's one of his personal eccentricities. He has a very strict routine, and when it's not followed or it is disrupted in some way, he becomes extremely anxious and carries out behaviors that are fairly uncharacteristic to himself. Let's see, what else? Gosh, I don't know. I mean, I could continue. And I'm obviously, I want to absolutely stress this. Not everyone who has Asperger's is a theoretical physicist or is obsessed with science or has an eidetic memory or is good at math. I think there's a lot of stereotypes out there about people who have Asperger's that, like, they're all, robotic and, antisocial and, just, hate people and are, very obsessed and geniuses at science. And that's not true. I mean, I think it's really important to understand the fact that, yes, there are a lot of symptoms of Asperger's, and in order to diagnose someone with Asperger's, they need to have the vast majority of the symptoms. Now, they don't always have all of the symptoms, and not only that, there are environmental factors. Obviously, if someone, has a set of symptoms and that applies to them, that does not mean in any way that their personality is shaped by that, like, precise set of blueprints, if you know what I mean. I'm finding it hard to explain this briefly, but I think it's really important. I think people get stigmatized a lot because it's so easy to just think of it that way. And yeah, for example, obsessions can range from something like surfing to something like theoretical physicists. They're not only academic interests. They're interests that are long-lasting and can be profound, but they're not necessarily scientific or academic in any sense. They can be artistic. They can be athletic. They can be, all sorts of different things. So anyway, I went on a little rant there, but okay. So basically, Sheldon Cooper, in my opinion, I think he has a lot of symptoms of Asperger's. I don't know if he has it or not. I don't have Asperger's. I don't know anyone who has it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. So I thought I'd mention all of that as well. So these are just points that I've seen and that, in my opinion, are kind of relevant to, what I'm trying to argue with this video. So yeah.